So it's the 20th of January now, and I just wanted to provide a little bit of an update on my new Rally Sport commuting bike that I got. So over the last week or so, I've been working at putting all of my accessories onto this bike. First there you can see I have a milk crate on the back. I used the old rack that I had on my black bike, and it already actually had a milk crate mounted to it, but it was a black milk crate, and it was actually kind of mounted in the wrong position. It was too far forward, so it was going to interfere with the seat there. So I had to take that one off. Rather than putting the black milk crate back on, I decided to put the orange one on instead. And on the back there I have a light now installed. One from Mountain Equipment Co-op. Pretty bright one. It's always a little bit of a challenge mounting these lights onto the back of a rack. Usually when they sell lights, they come with something like this. And the idea is that you're gonna, mount it on the back of your seat back here. But if I mount it on the back of my seat there, it's never going to show up behind me because there's a milk crate in the way. So in order for me to get this light mounted here, what I did is I took the piece of plastic which is designed for connecting to it, and you can see it has a hole through here. This part here usually connects to one of those loop things which goes around your seat post or wherever you're going to mount it. But instead of connecting it to that loop thing, I reconnected to this bent piece of metal here. There's basically an angle bracket which I have bolted to the frame here. I just drilled a bunch of holes in it to make it fit, and it seems to be working good so far. And you can also see that I added fenders to the front wheel and to the back wheel, and I saw that those were pretty affordable. They were $29 for the set of the front and the back, which I think is a pretty good deal for fenders, considering how dry they're going to keep you on any sort of a rainy day. So I got those and I installed them. And at Mountain Equipment Co-op I also bought a water bottle cage, which was about, $3, not very expensive either. And I already had a mirror in my inventory of parts, so I installed that onto my handlebars here, and also a new bell, one that doesn't rattle very much. It's called an Incredibell. I got that for $8 at Mountain Equipment Co-op. Something else that you can see I've added to the handlebars is a little bracket here, which holds a camera. So I just have my point and shoot Canon camera on the front there, just so I can do riding videos. This is kind of something that I've always wanted to add to one of my bikes, but I just thought this was a good opportunity to do it, and we'll get a little bit more into that a little bit later. And the front light that I have for this bike is actually the same one that I use on my Green Machine bike. I actually have two of these brackets, so I can easily just swap them back and forth between the two bikes. Also, something that I mentioned in the last video was that I was going to experiment and try the headset at a lower position, because it is adjustable here. So now I have it at the very lowest position possible, which is like negative 10% or 10 degrees, and I've been really happy with it here. It's a much lower riding position. You get a lot less wind against your body. The first video I said that I'd never used one of these before, and I wasn't really sure how to adjust it. So I did first try by loosening this off, and all of this piece here is just a pin through the middle, like it's a bolt that goes through there with really just the pivot. The thing you need to adjust to actually be able to adjust that is this bolt down here, which sort of comes out and it disengages these teeth, which were what locks it in place. So if you're going to ever adjust one of these, it's this bolt you do, and this one, all it needs to be is just loose enough that it's going to be able to pivot, which probably already is when they set it up at the factory. So something else that I've done to my Green Machine bike since the last video is I put my snow tires on. I have these studded winter tires. I've had them, this is the third season that I'm going to be using them, and they got these little metal spikes on there, which really do make quite a difference when you're riding on ice or snow, for giving you a little bit of extra traction to keep you from getting out of control. And tires like this can be pretty expensive, but they are really an important thing to have, because really the last thing you want is to be riding on a road where there's traffic and then to lose control in some way. For example, like your back wheel just like sort of fishtails out into traffic, and then cars also have reduced mobility in the winter too. So they're not going to really be able to do very much to stop or to avoid you. So really, to me, I think a really important thing to have, just for safety, just to keep you safe on the road. However, that being said, In the part of the country where I live, our winters are, they're up and down quite a bit. You'll get maybe a 2-week period where there's tons and tons of snow and ice, and it's always freezing and melting, and the roads are always just a mess. However, then you'll get another few weeks of much warmer weather where it warms up, everything melts. You've got dry roads. There's really no need for snow tires in those situations. So that's another reason why I like to have 2 bikes for doing my commuting. So I have my snow tires on my green machine this winter because that's the bike that has the 26-inch wheels, and the snow tires that I have are for 26-inch wheels. So on days when it's snowy and icy, that will be the bike that I'll be using. And then on days when the roads are clear, I'll just be riding this bike. And that'll also help to make my snow tires last for many more seasons. Obviously they're going to get a lot less distance on them because I'll be riding this, at least half of the time. And also, when you're riding, I imagine that riding those snow tires on pavement, a hard surface, all those little metal spikes, that's really going to wear them down quite a bit. So my idea is, to only really ride them when it's on, snow or ice, so they're not going to be getting dulled all the time from the pavement. Since the last video, I've also put lots more air pressure in the tires. They only had about 40 or something when I got them. So now I have them sitting at about 70. They are supposed to be able to go up to about 85. But I'm going to try them at 70 first and see how I like it like that. Another modification I made to this bike was I replaced the quick release that was on here because I don't want my seat to be disappearing on me. I don't want anyone to steal it. So I just put an Allen bolt through there. And then on the other end of the bolt, I just put a nut on there. However, I made this extra little piece over here, which is there to keep the nut from spinning. Because if I didn't have that there, every time I wanted to adjust my seat, I would need to get an Allen key on one side and then a wrench or a socket or something on the other side to keep it from spinning. So what I did was I made a thing out of one of these things, which is like the thing that goes, it goes on a front wheel to keep the wheel from coming off. And the nut seemed to just fit in there, really perfectly. And then I bent the edge of it over so that it would stick against here. And then, if this wouldn't allow the nut itself to spin. So now when I want to adjust my seat, all I need is just an Allen key. Oh, and I also moved the trailer hitch from the other bike and put it on this one. In terms of kickstands, the one that came on this bike I've now taken off. And you can see I have to have it leaned up against a chair here because it doesn't currently have a kickstand on it. The one that I had on my green bike in the last video was this one here in my hand, and I've now taken that one off, and I installed this other one, which attaches differently. It attaches right to the wheel nut here, which is a little bit less convenient. When I was at Mountain Equipment Co-op, I actually looked into buying another one of these, but unfortunately they didn't have any in stock at the Toronto store. However, I was thinking since I do still have this kickstand, I decided I would install it on this bike, and then I'll move this one over to my new bike. However, when I was removing this kickstand from my green bike, 2 of the bolts that were holding it on there snapped off on me. Although I've always been really happy with how this kickstand's worked, I've never really been happy with the bolts that they give you with it. They just have like a screw head end, and to get them on, there's quite a bit of resistance when you're tightening them on. And as you're tightening them on and off, you always feel like you're stripping the end there, just because you have a screwdriver head on there. So I've looked through my container of spare nuts and bolts, and I'd love to replace it with, something like this that has an Allen head on it, because, those don't really strip, and, it'd be much easier to get a grip on with your Allen head, and, those should be able to fit inside of here. However, the thread pattern on these bolts are different than anything else that I have. They must be some kind of imperial thread. So my mission for today is to take all this stuff with me to the hardware store and ideally try and find a bolt that's going to be similar to this one. Or actually I need 4 bolts like this. Ideally I'd like to find something that has a better head on it than this guy here. Ideally I'd like an Allen head on the end of it. But I guess a square Robertson head like this one here would still be an improvement over what I've been using. So I've decided to take this opportunity to try out my new camera mount. So I will take the camera with me on my journey to Home Depot and back. And obviously I'll speed it way up so you're not going to be sitting there bored to death. And then after that I'll come back here and I'll show you the new bolts that I found. And then I will install them on the the new bike, and then I should have kickstand on both my bikes. So I'll see you on the road. That was a pretty chilly ride. It was not that cold, but really windy. So I'm here now. I'm just going to go inside with this, and we'll see what we can find in the way of bolts. Alright, well, I found something which I think is going to work. Unfortunately, I couldn't find one that had an Allen head on it, but I was able to find this little package of screws, which I guess will work. And it's got a Robertson head on it, so it will be better than what's on there. But anyways, I'm going to hop back on the bike and we'll ride back home, and then we'll open this up and give her a try. So I'm back home now again, and I'm not too sure how much footage I got on the ride home. A few times while I was riding, I noticed that the camera had, completely turned off, and the lens had gone back inside the front there. So I'm not sure whether it was running out of batteries. I did turn it back on again and start it again, but it stopped. So as I said, I'm not sure how much of the drive home I got, but I'm pretty sure I got all of the ride to Home Depot. So this is what I got. They are 1024 and they're 1¼ inch. So they are a non-metric thread for some reason. For whatever reason, the company that makes this kickstand, Greenfield, doesn't use metric bolts, which is kind of annoying because most things on bikes are fully metric. So the kind of heads that they have on them are what are called a Robertson head. And from what I understand, they don't use Robertson heads in the United States. It's just something from Canada, like something about the patent or something. It's not. They don't have it in the United States. So you can see there the end of it has a square. It also has a slotted screwdriver end as well. But there's an end that takes a square thing that looks like this, and it fits right in the end there. And those have a very good grip. It's just as good as an Allen key has. It stays in there, and you're able to tighten it on, without the screwdriver slipping at all. I probably would have also been able to get a bolt that was like this, except it had like a hex head on it, something you put like a socket onto the end of. Except for this application, for there's 2 bolts that go in there, one that goes in there, and one that goes in there, and 2 of them need to go inside these little holes. So they can't have a big head on them. They need to fit inside there. So luckily the heads on these ones are just small enough to be able to fit in there. They are a little bit bigger than the existing ones that were on this, but I think this is going to work. So I've got the bike just laying here on the ground. I'm going to get down to business of bolting this on there. So it's probably going to be something like this, something so that this extra bar here is pushing up against the second frame rail of the bike, so that it's pressing up against both of these 2 rails. And I'll probably get a piece of rubber or something and wrap it around each part of the frame where the kickstand is going to be touching it, just to protect the finish a little bit, but also just to give it something for to spring back against when I'm tightening those bolts on, rather than causing dents in the actual frame or warping the kickstand a little bit. So I'm just using 2 little strips from an old inner tube, which I've cut to fit on there. And then this goes behind. And then I guess I'll start with this bolt here in the middle. Hopefully it's long enough. Seems like it is. And I believe these fasteners are stainless steel, so hopefully they're not going to rust on me the way that the old ones did. So I'm just going to get all these bolts started a little bit, just loosely, get them lined up with their holes. And that one. And this one up here. Now get them all tightened up a little bit more. Yeah, this is much better than the old screws. I remember from before, like turning these, there's a fair bit of resistance when you're tightening these on. And I remember the screwdriver just was always slipping when I was putting this on before. And there it is on the bike, fully operational. Now we're just gonna lift it up and make sure that it works. I am a little bit concerned that this is not going to be long enough because, you know, this was on my other bike which had the smaller wheels. So I'm afraid that it's gonna, this is gonna be a little bit too short maybe, and it'll lean too far. But we'll have to give it a try and see. Nope, I would say that's pretty much perfect. It's got a good amount of lean to it. I think that's going to be really stable. And I'm also testing this here to make sure this is nice and stable, like it's not going to slip out of here, slide this way or something. And it seems to be on there, really good. So I'm really happy with this installation. So now that the bike is able to stand there on its own with its own kickstand, it's pretty much done in terms of accessories. There's really nothing else that I can think of that I would want to put onto it. As I mentioned in the last video, I do want to get around to changing some of these cables, making a video showing you guys how to change cables. When I was at Mountain Equipment Co-op, I did buy some derailleur cables, so I will make that switch, make that video quite soon, I hope. But until then, I hope you've enjoyed this video and enjoyed seeing my my updates, all the little things I've done to my new bike and how I've been enjoying it so far. I also hope you enjoyed my little trip to the hardware store and my installation of the kickstand. That concludes this video. Thanks for watching.